Just watch. Praise be to Allah. So obviously you're mocking the religion of Iran. Okay. If you seek a religious war, that's a good idea. But by the way, no decent person mocks other people's religions. You may have a problem with the theology. Presumably you do if it's not your religion, and you can explain what that is. But to mock other people's faith is to mock the idea of faith itself. And we should never mock that, because at its core is the acknowledgement that we are not in charge of the universe. We did not build it. We won't be here at the end of it. We can destroy life. We cannot create it because we are not God. The message of all faith at the biggest picture level is the message in our Bible, which is you are not God. And only if you think you are do you talk this way.
I never thought I would see the day, ladies and gents, but Tucker Carlson has officially denounced, broke up any ties with Donald Trump. Some would say it's already happened a while back, but regardless, he isn't just disagreeing, ladies and gents. He's calling Trump out, basically, more or less calling him the Antichrist, speaking of him in devilish ways. And to be honest with you, I 100% agree with him. Trump has been behaving like the devil on earth. Let's get to it.
a.m. Eastern time on Easter morning that said this, and we're going to read it in its entirety, not in outrage or self-righteousness, but honestly in horror. Quote, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. 3 exclamation points. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. All caps. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. Now, a lot of people reading that imagined, of course, this can't be real. Did the President of the United States really just write that? And it is real. It is maybe the most real thing this president has ever done, and also the most revealing. On every level, it is vile on every level. It begins with a promise to use the U.S. military, our military, to destroy civilian infrastructure in another country, which is to say to commit a war crime, a moral crime against the people of the country, whose welfare, by the way, was one of the reasons we supposedly went into this war in the first place. They're being killed by their government. We have to rescue them. And now here's our president, not even a month and a half into the conflict, which we are not winning, by the way, because the Straits of Hormuz are not open. There's one way to keep track. That's the measurement. Saying that we're going to use our military to kill the civilians of this country who didn't choose the war. They got nothing to do with it. They're like civilians everywhere. Blow up their bridges? Bridges on military bases? No, just bridges. Bridges that people cross every day to go to school and work and to worship, and yes, church, because there are over 1 million Christians in Iran. This is their Easter too. And power plants. Not the power plants attached to missile factories, okay, but civilian power plants in a country of almost 100 million people. What happens when a modern country, and a country that has a nuclear program is a modern country, sorry, Iran is a modern country, what happens when it loses power? Well, people die. Babies connected to incubators die. People in hospitals die. And those are the first level effects. And then people begin to starve. And then you have refugee crises. People leave the cities looking for food. And yes, they move into other countries. In the region, in Europe, in the United States, you cause chaos and death, mass suffering and death when you do that. And we have done that. We have intentionally bombed civilian infrastructure in Iran. It's totally unacceptable. Not under the phony laws of some international body, but under moral law, God's law, killing non-combatants, people who did nothing wrong, who didn't choose this war, who were just people created by God. That is immoral. That will never be moral. That can never be justified. That is always wrong.
100%. 100%. I mean, we're going to continue with the most viral clips, but he's 100%. You know, as good Christians, you can never be on this side of the aisle. You can't. I voted for Trump twice. I wanted him to do well. I thought he started great, but this is unbelievable, and he is unhinged. I mean, look at the last post of today, ladies and gents. Our whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have to compete, we have complete and total regime change where different and smarter and less radicalized minds prevail. Maybe something revolutionary. Like a civilization will die tonight? Like what this is, I'm afraid to admit it, but this is talk of a Nazi dictator. And I've debated and I've argued with many, many, many people trying to call him Hitler. But man, he is unhinged. And I don't know how to go from here. I don't. You've got to be scared. At this point, I don't even think that Israel got us to this war anymore. Trump sounds unhinged. Maybe he wanted this all along. I agree with Tucker 100%.
We need to do this. It doesn't mean it's right. It's the most wrong thing. And we should always remember that what we do will be done to us. Live by the destruction of civilian infrastructure. Live by the killing of children, the bombing of elementary schools and colleges. And you will die, and your children will die by those same things. That's just a fact. That's never not been true. We don't want it to be true. It's the last thing we want to be true, but it is nonetheless true. And everyone knows that on an animal level. You can feel that that's true. Ooh, shouldn't do that. You'll be punished for it in this life or the next, or maybe both. For the president to say that and not bother to tell us, oh, it was an accident we did this. Well, one, it makes you reassess the bombing of the girls' school attached to the IRGC naval base, where the children of Iranian military officers were incinerated in a bombing, not one but two, a double tap. Every person has assumed that was a mistake. No American could ever believe the U.S. government would do that on purpose. I still don't believe it. But after this, you have to kind of wonder, how did that happen?
100%. And I've questioned that before. I've argued with people saying that it was deliberate, and I don't want to believe that, because when we're in the military, we ultimately carried out those decisions, and I refuse to believe that we would say we would agree with that. The more and more that this war goes on, the more Dave Smith is right, or seems to be. We are a terrorist group, it seems like, at this moment in time. The way we're speaking, the way our president speaks of this whole situation, a whole civilization will die, he says. It's unbelievable. Now, Tucker, of course, goes on and speaks also about the Maduro case and how kidnapping him and bringing him to justice, quote unquote, was something that, that people denounced, but some were in agreement, and some would say that it was beneficial for the Venezuelans. The vice president is still there carrying out Maduro's leadership, if you will, but he's out of action, so maybe things will change. What did Tucker have to say? Let's listen.
Trump was against an anti-American leader. In fact, that was a benefit in the eyes of most of his voters. The problem was why we did it and why the president told us he did it, and that was for the oil. So in the days before that operation in early January, the president tweeted out, sent out on his Truth Social account, and also said in public, we're doing this because we want the oil, because that oil belongs to the United States. He never explained how exactly the United States would own the natural resources of a foreign country. Apparently, American oil companies helped develop the oil fields in Venezuela. Therefore, we own the oil. That was the idea, and they stole it from us. But there was no real effort to explain how that works, how that makes any sense at all. Instead, you had the president of the United States say, we need the oil. Oil's really important. True and true. Therefore, we're going to take it. And therefore, apparently, we did. In the days after that operation, the successful removal of the president of the country and the installation of his vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, as president, our president, Donald Trump, held a widely publicized on-camera meeting with the heads of American oil companies and talked through how we're going to split up the natural resources of Venezuela and why this is great for America. So why should Christians have paused at exactly that moment and asked, can I still support this? Is this what I voted for? Is this what I want? Is this acceptable? And the reason is really simple, because Trump at that moment revealed that the motive was taking something that we wanted. And that's not acceptable for Christians. In fact, that's not acceptable for Americans or any civilized people, because taking other people's stuff by force cannot be allowed. In fact, preventing that is the basis of our legal code.
He's right on that. Listen, this is America first. This is the America's first conflict. I mean, Trump says take the oil, and of course Tucker there says that it's just high-level shoplifting, if you will. This is basically what it is. We can't steal. That's the way we live life, right? But our president takes another country's oil. We set the standard. If we set the standard that we can just take whatever we want because we're the biggest bully and we're Billy the badass and we just do whatever we want, we can't complain when someone else does it to us. And that is the mindset of a never-ending war. We have to retaliate. Now they retaliate to you against you. Now you got to do it against them. And it's just a vicious circle, a vicious cycle that never stops. And it only kills soldiers, civilians. And those are the ones that suffer because the president, he's in his office. He's a millionaire. He's a billionaire. He enjoys his life. After he's president, he'll live his life again. He'll do whatever he wants. But the lives of the rest are forever changed. And that's the problem that they don't see. Now, let us go with, to finalize this, with the clip of Tucker as he reacts to Mark Levin's argument that dropping an atomic bomb is an act of peace.
Which is what convinced Truman, Harry Truman, the then president in 1945, we'd lose 1 million men if we didn't drop the atomic bombs that we did. Did you hear that? That's Mark Levin's counsel to our sitting president, Donald Trump, right now. You are looking at a choice between the catastrophic loss of your troops in a ground war or the use of nuclear weapons, which, in a sense, if you think about it, just think about it for a second, is actually an act of peace. It's an act of peace. The most humane thing you could do is to end this now with nuclear weapons. That's the case Mark Levin is making to the president, who just last week recommended that all Americans watch Mark Levin's show. Okay. This is not like crazy dot connecting here. This is one-to-one. This is really obvious where we're moving. And again, we're moving toward the use of weapons of indiscriminate mass destruction, possibly nuclear weapons, but non-conventional weapons. Not bombs dropped from the air, or missiles launched from launchers, but the use of weapons that have never been used in war ever. And the argument is the same argument that you heard in 1945, or didn't hear, by the way, if you're an American civilian. No one ever cuts you in on this. Thank heaven for Mark Levin saying it out loud so the rest of us can at least follow along and know what we're in for and implicated in. But the argument that it's actually much more humane to kill tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of civilians than it is to fight it out with the Marine Corps on the rocky shores of mainland Iran. That's the argument. But it's not just the argument that one guy in cable news is making. It is the logic of escalation in this war, because in some sense, Mark Levin is right. We are not going to open the straits with the United States Marine Corps, the 82nd Airborne, or the Tier 1 operators that everyone on cable news seems to know so much about. The Tier 1 operators, Tier 1. Just guys, like some of the best guys actually in America could be killed in this. That's a better way to put it. It's a more real way to put it. They are not going to open the strait. And so unless somebody puts the brakes on right away, we're going to wind up in a place that we can't even imagine.
And that's the bottom line, ladies and gents. That's what it's looking like. So, yeah, I mean, Tucker has been very adamant on this whole situation. So have I, to be honest. I mean, honestly, this war is not really my cup of tea. We shouldn't have been there. So he just laid out the most, serious warnings out there for this war. Whether you're a Trump supporter or not, we have to ask, are we following a leader, or are we following an ideology that leads to total destruction? But anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.